Do you remember the moment you first began to feel empty? I guess you don't. It didn't arrive with a dramatic event, not a sudden fall, not a crushing failure, not even a tearful breakup. It came slowly, quietly, like a thin wisp of smoke slipping under a door. At first, it was only a heaviness in your chest, a slight shortness of breath when you woke up in the morning. Then, without warning, the things that once brought you joy began to drift away. As if hidden behind a pane of fogged glass, you still smile when someone talks to you, still nod when they ask how you are. But deep inside, you know you've been fading, little by little, into a nameless emptiness. You call it depression. Everyone does. But there is another truth behind that haze. What you are experiencing may not be an ending at all. It may be a beginning, the beginning of a journey few dare to take. Some call it the descent into the self. From the outside, it may look like a collapse, but in reality, it is the only doorway into a new world within you. Imagine walking along the familiar road of your life. Everything looks the same, yet nothing feels as it did before. You wake up, go to work, talk to people, chase goals, but it all unfolds like a faded dream. You no longer feel real. The you once believed in now feels like a worn-out mask, a role repeated so many times that your soul has begun to withdraw. Others still see you standing there, but the deepest part of you has been silent for a long time. I don't deny the pain of it. It steals your sleep. It makes you cry in silence. It leads you to scroll endlessly on your phone just to forget you exist. But what I want to tell you is this: try to see it differently. Because long before us, someone else went through the very same thing. He did not call it depression. He called it a confrontation with the self. And he went all the way to the bottom. For 6 years, he did not just endure it. He listened to the whispers of his own soul. Out of that darkness, he wrote a strange book filled with chaotic images and conversations with faces no one else could see. It was not dry philosophy. It was more like a map, marking the path of a human being who ventured into the abyss and returned. Strangely, he never wanted to publish it while alive. Perhaps he knew not everyone is ready to face their own darkness. But the book survived. And now it feels like a message meant for you, for me, for anyone who has ever felt lost within their own life. That message whispers, you are not broken. You are being called inward. Think about it. When an old system no longer works, it collapses to make way for the new. When the body is ill, it often runs a fever to burn away what harms it. The soul is the same. When false living, shallow relationships, and exhausting roles no longer feed it, it withdraws. It stops playing the old game. And what you feel as heaviness, numbness, and meaninglessness is its call. It is hard to believe that something so painful could carry the seed of transformation. But look again. Haven't all the pleasures you once clung to lost their life? Music no longer moves you. Goals are just empty numbers. Even in a crowd, you feel completely alone. But what if this is not loss? What if it is a reminder? This life is no longer real to me. Picture yourself in a vast house. Upstairs, the rooms are crowded with people, laughter, endless chatter. You have stayed there too long, smiling, nodding, playing the good, competent, reliable one. But one day, you quietly walk down to the basement. The door closes, the light fades, and you sit alone in the cold dark. Most would panic and run back up to the noise. But if you're brave enough to stay, to listen to the silence, after a while, you will hear a faint whisper, not from outside, but from the very depths within. A voice you had forgotten long ago saying, I have been waiting for you for so long. In that moment, you will understand. What you call depression is not just collapse. It is the meeting with your true self, the one you left behind. The pain is not here to destroy you. It is here to bring you home. So when you feel like you do now, heavy, tired, empty of meaning, ask yourself, could this be not an illness, but a call? The call of a part of you that wants you to stop chasing weary goals, and to turn inward. You are not alone on this path. Everyone brave enough to go down into the depths has felt it too. And then, from within the darkness, something begins to open. A doorway you never noticed before. A doorway that does not lead outward, but deeper inside. And from the very heart of that darkness, a door begins to open. That door doesn't open to familiar scenery. It leads down a deep, shadowed corridor. You step inside, heart racing, unsure of what you'll find. Many people, upon reaching this point, get scared. They turn back to the noise above, to the parties, to the polite compliments. But some, even trembling, choose to stay. And they are the ones who begin to see what the rest of the world has never dared to face. There was once a man who walked through this very corridor. For 6 long years, he allowed himself to drift into the darkest corners of his soul. Outsiders thought he was having a breakdown. Some even believed he had lost his mind. But to him, it wasn't a collapse. It was an exploration, a journey, not outward into the world, but inward into himself. And in that darkness, he began to hear things that reason could not explain. Voices, images, conversations with strange faces no one else could see. The book he left behind is now known as the Red Book. It isn't a novel. It isn't a psychological theory. It's more like a map of the invisible landscapes within the human spirit. These lands are not peaceful. They are filled with demons, chaos, and madness that feels like it could swallow you whole. But he didn't run. He stayed. He listened. He observed. He wrote. And instead of calling it insanity, he called it a confrontation with the unconscious. You might find that kind of courage unbelievable. Most of us are terrified of our own darkness. We try to hide it behind smiles, behind busyness, behind achievements. But the more we bury it, the larger it grows. And one day, it demands to be heard. When you feel exhausted, empty, when nothing feels meaningful anymore, that might be the moment your darkness knocks on the door. It doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to say, it's time to face me. Picture that house again. You're in the basement. The light is dim. It's cold. Silence wraps around you. Anyone who steps down here feels their heart pounding, and most rush back up the stairs. But if you stay, if you sit on the cold floor, breathe slowly, and endure the silence long enough, you'll begin to hear it. A whisper, unclear at first, like a voice from far away. Then slowly, it becomes familiar. A voice saying, I am you, the part of you you abandoned just to survive. That moment is terrifying and sacred because it tells you that behind all the roles, behind all the masks, there is a true self still waiting to be seen. It doesn't care if you're perfect. It doesn't care if you're liked. It only wants to be whole. This is why the Red Book is not just a strange work. It is proof that when a person dares to face the abyss within, they don't just find madness. They find truth, and though that truth may shake you at first, it is the only thing that can ever set you free. Maybe you're thinking, I'm not strong enough to do that. I just want this pain to go away. But ask yourself, how long have you been running? How many ways have you tried to numb at work, love, distractions, staying busy? And did any of it truly make the emptiness disappear? Or was it simply waiting in silence until you were alone again to pull you back down? The answer isn't to run farther. The answer is to stop. Just like that man who sat for 6 years in the dark, recording dreams, images, symbols he didn't fully understand. He didn't try to explain them away. He listened. He let them be. And slowly, from that chaos, a kind of clarity began to emerge. Maybe you were standing before the same choice. You can run back up the stairs, lose yourself in the crowd, wear the same tired smile. Or you can stay in the basement, feel the cold, endure the silence. And one day, you might hear the voice of your own soul calling out to you. This is not an easy path. It is not a glowing awakening filled with warm light. No, it begins with fatigue, with emptiness, with confusion. But here is a truth few will ever tell you. It is that very darkness that holds the only door to your soul. And when you finally stop in the darkness, the first thing you meet won't be light. It will be a truth so raw, so honest, it chills you to the bone. Truth, when it appears in the dark, is rarely gentle. It doesn't arrive as a comforting word or a beam of saving light. It comes like a shattered mirror, reflecting the pieces of you that you've tried so hard to bury. Everything you don't want to remember, everything you've denied, every feeling you labeled as weakness, they sit there in silence, staring back at you. And you realize the emptiness was never random. It was your soul's quiet rebellion. A rebellion, fierce yet unspoken, against the masks you've worn for far too long. The masks of perfection, the pressure to always be strong, to always smile, to always have the answers. But your soul never asked for that. It never needed you to be admired. It just needed you to be honest. And when you wouldn't listen, It began to close the doors to what used to bring you joy. That's why you no longer feel excited about the things that once lit you up. Your favorite movies feel dull. Hanging out with friends only leaves you drained. Even the dreams that once got you out of bed now feel like meaningless numbers. You think something is broken inside you. But what if this is your soul refusing to keep playing the old game? What if it's pulling you away from a life of pretending? In the basement of the soul, where the darkness is thick and still, this is the real choice: run or stay. Those who run go back to the noise, back to comfort and distractions. But those who stay, even as they tremble, begin to hear the whispers. And sometimes, just one sentence rises from the depths, a voice saying, "I've been waiting for you for a very long time." If you're hearing these words and something in you feels seen, know this: you are not alone. All over the world, in quiet corners, others too are sitting with their darkness, listening to the whispers of their own souls. You may never meet them in person, but right here, in this space, we are sharing something real. So if this resonates with you, leave a sign, a short comment, a like, a message. Not just to support this channel, but to remind yourself that you are seen, that you are not walking alone through this dark corridor. The pain you're carrying is not the end. It's more like a bell ringing, telling you the life you've been living has grown too small. The relationships you've kept just to feel belonging, the goals you've chased out of fear of being left behind, they are all beginning to crack under the weight of truth. And that truth is simple: you no longer want to pretend. Maybe you're exhausted. Maybe you've cried in silence when no one was looking. But allow yourself to feel it. Don't push it down. Don't rush to put on another mask. Because in that fragile moment, the soul finally has a chance to step forward and speak the words it's kept hidden for so long. That man from long ago, the one who wrote the Red Book, he felt all of this too. He sat not to find quick answers, but to be in conversation with the chaos. He wrote, he drew, he recorded visions so strange that others thought he'd lost his mind. But to him, they were the language of the unconscious. The voice of the soul trying to be heard. Do you see it now? What you've been calling depression may not be a flaw to fix, but the language of your own being. It doesn't speak in words. It speaks in emptiness, fatigue, and disconnection, pressing you to listen. And if you're brave enough, instead of pushing it away, you can sit with it and begin to hear what it's trying to say. It won't be a pleasant conversation. At first, all you'll hear is the weight of silence, sometimes anger, sometimes fear. But if you stay long enough, another voice will begin to rise, warmer, more patient, the voice of your real self, the part you abandoned to feel safe, to be accepted, to be loved, which means that every tear you've cried, every moment you felt lost, is not meaningless. They are signs that you are drawing close to the most important meeting of your life, the meeting with your true self. And when that moment comes, you'll understand. Pain is not the enemy. It's the door. A door not out of the darkness, but deeper into yourself, to the place where your soul has been waiting all along. Because after the chaos, after the long nights of emptiness, what remains is your soul. There is a strange moment that happens after you've sat long enough in the dark. The things you once believed, defined, you begin to fall apart. Like a statue worn down by wind and rain, the familiar edges begin to disappear. You look into the mirror and no longer recognize who you are. The identity you once clung to suddenly feels like a stranger. People call this a breakdown. But there's another way to see it: the death of the old self. A death without a body, but still deeply painful. Because you are saying goodbye to the version of you that once helped you survive. You notice your relationships beginning to crack. People who once felt close start drifting away. They say you've changed, that you're not who you used to be. And they're right. You no longer force a smile just to keep the peace. You stop nodding just to be accepted. The bridges built on pretending begin to collapse. And it leaves you shaken. Because we humans are afraid of loss. It feels like everything is slipping away: friendships, career, motivation, even your own identity. You don't know who you are anymore, what you want, or where you belong. Emptiness sets in. But within that very emptiness, a new space is beginning to open. Carl Jung once wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. The pain you're feeling is not a punishment. It is a rite of passage. Just like a forest must burn for new life to grow, your old self is dissolving so that something new can rise." The hardest part of this stage is that you will feel like you're losing everything. The relationships that were built on your constant people-pleasing begin to fall away. The dreams you borrowed from others suddenly lose meaning. Even your body resists. You can't sleep. You feel tired. Tears come for no reason. You think you're breaking down. But in truth, you are going through a spiritual death, making space for your rebirth. Think of a caterpillar inside a cocoon. It doesn't know it's about to become a butterfly. All it knows is that its body is melting, breaking apart, losing all shape. If it had awareness, it would probably call it a disaster. But we know this is the only way it can fly. And you too, this breaking down is not your ending. It is your becoming. There will be mornings you wake up and don't recognize yourself. You'll stare into the mirror and ask, "Who am I? What am I here for?" That question will terrify you. But let it echo. Because only when the old questions, "How can I be liked? How can I succeed?" collapse, will the real question emerge. Who am I when I am no longer wearing a mask? In that stillness, you'll begin to hear more clearly. At first, it's just the sound of things breaking. Then comes the deep sigh of your soul, like it's finally free after years of being caged. And then, from the ashes, something tiny begins to stir. What's important to remember is that no one can walk this part of the path for you. No medicine can erase the pain of ego death. No advice can help you skip this stage without facing the dark. You have to go through it. You have to let the old self die, no matter how much it hurts. This is the point where many turn back. They can't bear the loneliness, the confusion. So they return to fake relationships, to empty goals. But if you can endure it, if you dare to let your old self fall away, what awaits you is not emptiness. It is something entirely true. The truth that you were never the roles you played. You are not your title. You are not your family's expectations. You are not the smile you forced when you were hurting. You are a soul, and all your soul has ever wanted is to be whole. You may say, "But I'm scared. I don't know what will be left if I let go of everything." And I understand, because stepping into the void is the most terrifying thing. But remember, only in the void can the new be born. If you're not willing to dissolve, you will never truly be reborn. The pain you feel now is like fire. It burns away everything that isn't real. And yes, in that fire, you may want to run. But if you are brave enough to stay to let it burn through you, you will find, on the other side of the flames, a new stillness, a clean ground, a space where your soul can finally begin to grow. So let yourself fall apart. Let the false things fall away. Let the old self die. Because from those ashes, something real is waiting to be born. And when the old finally collapses, a terrifying emptiness opens up. But in that space, the first seeds of something true begin to awaken. When a new seed begins to sprout from that emptiness, you'll notice the world around you no longer looks the same. Not because the world has changed, but because your eyes have what once seemed normal, now feels false. What once felt close, now reveals its shallowness. These are the first signs of awakening, not loud, not bright, but quiet, like a gentle breeze pulling back a long-forgotten curtain. You begin to see relationships falling apart, not because you want them to, but because you no longer have the energy to keep performing. You were the one who always listened, always reached out first, always carried the weight of connection. But one day, you simply stop. You stop forcing smiles just to make others comfortable. You stop saying yes just to be liked. You stop chasing to hold on to closeness. And when you stop, everything becomes clearer. Those who only stayed because you tried so hard begin to disappear. They say you've changed, that you're cold, distant. And they're right, you have changed. You're no longer forcing yourself to survive. You're slowly returning to who you really are. It hurts because every time a relationship fades, it feels like losing a piece of your past. But at the same time, you feel lighter because for the first time, you're no longer carrying the weight of fake connections built on pretending. Then comes the day you begin mourning for yourself, not for what you lost on the outside, but for who you once were, the version of you who wore all those masks just to make it through, the one who tried to be strong, always capable, always quiet in their suffering, the one who believed that being good enough, kind enough, would earn them love. You see them now for what they were, a lost child, doing anything they could just to feel accepted. When that truth hits, your heart will ache. You'll grieve for yourself, and you'll know it's time to let that version go. Because even though they once saved you, they've now become a cage. It feels like attending a funeral of farewell to your old identity. Your tears fall, but in them is also a quiet relief. For the first time, you see it clearly. You don't have to wear the mask anymore. There will be days when your emotions feel like a storm. Peace one moment, anger the next, then sadness, then hope. The waves confuse you, make you think you're breaking down. But really they're just fragments of memory, buried feelings rising all at once. They don't come to destroy you. They come to be seen. Every wound, every rage, every abandoned dream, they want to come into the light. And as they do, your life feels chaotic. But it's within that chaos that healing begins. Another sign, just as powerful. You're no longer obsessed with being understood. In the past, one cold glance or one harsh word could keep you awake at night. But now, you begin to let go. You speak your truth. And if someone doesn't get it, you let them not get it. You follow what feels right. And even if no one notices, you keep going. Silence becomes your new companion, not the silence of loneliness, but the silence of freedom. You no longer need the noise to feel real. This is the turning point. Because when you no longer need approval from the outside, you finally touch the power within. You begin to realize your worth was never in how many people clapped for you, but in whether you had the courage to live true to yourself. And once you know that, you can't unsee it. The unexpected part is this. When you become true to yourself, you also become a mirror. And not everyone will like what they see. Your honesty will unsettle others. When you set boundaries, they feel abandoned. When you speak truth, they feel exposed. When you stop pretending, they're forced to confront their own pretending. And suddenly, you become a reflection of everything they're not ready to face. It makes you lonelier, but it also makes you freer than you've ever been. You no longer carry the burden of keeping everyone happy. You no longer betray your heart to keep peace. And in that loneliness, you discover a new kind of peace, deeper, quieter, more real. Remember, even the man from long ago, the one who returned from the darkness of his own soul, lost much along the way. Friends distanced themselves. Colleagues questioned him. Many called him mad, but he couldn't go back. Because once you've seen your soul, you can't pretend you haven't, and neither can you. Once you've heard that whisper, you can't go back to your old role. You may lose much, but you are moving closer to what's real, and that is the most precious thing of all. When you begin to accept these signs, the loss, the pain, the chaos, the solitude, you'll understand, they're all part of the journey. They didn't come to end you. They came to birth someone new, someone more whole. Once you walk through these signs, you'll understand. This is not a breakdown. It is a birth messy, painful, and raw. And through the sobs, through the storms, through every loss you thought you couldn't bear, a new life is quietly forming. And when the masks have fallen, when the fake relationships have dissolved, when you're sitting quietly with the silence itself, you will see that awakening was never meant to be easy. It always begins with a breaking, but in that breaking, a new reality is quietly waiting for you. And when that door finally opens, you will face the most terrifying truth of all, not the loss outside, but the collapse of your entire inner world. When the entire world you once knew begins to collapse, the first feeling that washes over you isn't freedom. It's terror. You step into a familiar room, but everything feels foreign. The walls, the pictures, the faces you once loved, all of it seems to have lost its color. Even the music that once brought you to tears now feels like nothing but hollow noise. You realize you no longer belong here, but there's nowhere else yet to hold on to. This is the land of crisis. The old roles have fallen away, but the new self has not yet arrived. You're suspended between two shores, no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming. Others look at you and see silence, distance, someone who has changed. But how could they understand when you can't even explain what's happening inside you? You begin to watch your old dreams fall, like dead leaves. The goals that once pulled you out of bed now have no life. You hold them in your hands, and they slip through like sand. Everything you once trusted, career, love, status, turns to ashes. And in that moment, it feels like you are dying. Not the death of your body, but of your old soul. Jung once said that light doesn't come from imagining beautiful images. It comes from making the darkness conscious. And this is where you are now. The darkness isn't out there anymore, not in ghost stories or distant enemies. It's inside you. It's the anger you buried, the fear you hid behind a smile, the desires you repressed, the longings you were told were shameful. Now, they are rising raw, unfiltered, and unhidden. For the first time, you look directly into your shadow, and it shakes you. You see how selfish, how angry, how fragile you really are. You see the lies in your people-pleasing. You see envy. You see greed. You see the loneliness you've tried so hard to ignore. All the things you once pushed away are now crashing down like a storm with no exit. Most people, when they reach this point, run. They cover it with pills, with work, with distraction. Because the truth is too bare, too hard to face. But if you are brave enough not to run, if you stay and look, you will see something strange. That darkness didn't come to destroy you. It came to be acknowledged. Every fear, every fury, every forgotten longing, they are all parts of you. They don't want to ruin you. They just want to be seen, heard, accepted. They are like abandoned children, crying louder the more you push them away. But when you turn back, when you hold them instead of hiding them, they begin to quiet down. This is what it means to integrate the shadow. Not to fight it, but to embrace it. To become whole. You no longer have to play the part of the perfect person, because you've made peace with the fact that you carry darkness too. You're no longer afraid of your anger or your sadness, because you know now they are part of what makes you human. And in that acceptance, you discover a new kind of strength, not from control, but from courage, the courage to face what is real. Still, this process isn't easy. It can feel like you are falling apart piece by piece. Some days you wake up feeling peaceful, then fall back into fear within minutes. You think you're making progress, only to collapse again in despair. You believe you've lost your way, but the truth is, this is the way. Because rebirth is never a straight line. It's a storm spiraling, chaotic, destroying, and creating at once. You begin to see that what you call depression may not be a sickness. It may be a spiritual crisis, a necessary collapse so the soul can reorganize. The death of the old self is the price for a true self to be born. And the hardest truth of all, you can't rush it. You can't skip the dark and jump straight into the light. You must walk through it one step at a time. You must let the fear stay. Let the pain shake you. Let the loneliness surround you. And only when you stop running does the darkness begin to become your silent teacher. This is when you will feel more alone than ever. Not because no one is around, but because no one can fully understand what you're going through. And yet, within that loneliness, a deeper truth begins to emerge. You don't need the world to understand. You just need the courage not to betray yourself. You've come too far to turn back now. The masks have burned to ash. The fake relationships have fallen away. You are standing in the fire, trembling, but shining. And from within that fire, your true soul begins to speak. And when everything seems to have collapsed, you will hear another voice, softer, but stronger than before. A voice that says, "You are not dying, you are being born." That whisper echoes within you, like a new heartbeat. And you know, you can never go back to who you were. The masks have fallen. The old world has burned to ash. You stand in the space between, still trembling, but you understand this is not the end. This is your rebirth. You begin to live differently, not by trying to become someone new, but by slowly shedding everything that was never truly yours, like wiping layers of dust off a mirror, until finally you see your real reflection. First, you let go of the need to be understood. You've spent your life trying to explain to parents, to friends, to society. You wanted them to know why you chose this path, why you don't fit their mold. But now, you no longer need their understanding. You weren't born to match anyone. You were born to be yourself. So when others call you selfish, distant, cold, you smile, because they don't need to understand. Being understood is a privilege, not a requirement. And you've chosen truth over acceptance. Then, you begin to accept that you are not the identity you once believed. You are not the strong one who suffers in silence, not the good one who always sacrifices, not the successful one who must achieve it all. You realize that old identity was just a coat sewn from fear and expectations. It once protected you, but now it's far too small, and you must let it be buried. You grieve it, you thank it for helping you survive, and then you let it go. In that release, you begin to create new rituals, small but sacred. You sit in silence, not to escape, but to listen. You write down what rises within, without judgment. You draw the strange images that come in your dreams. You walk in nature, letting your breath match the wind, the trees, the sky. You turn silence into a temple, a place where your soul can return. And every time you sit there, in that stillness, you feel a little closer to the truth inside you. And from that stillness, you begin to write a new inner code. Not rules borrowed from the world, but truths etched into your heart. I no longer trade truth for acceptance. I no longer chase what leaves me empty. I protect my peace as something sacred. I walk away without guilt when I must. I speak what's real, not what's easy. I no longer explain my worth. It simply is. This code becomes your compass, and the world will try to pull you back with old voices, old faces, old masks. But all you need is to touch the words you've carved inside you, and you smile, I don't live there anymore. Over time, you stop seeing yourself as a victim of depression and begin to see yourself as someone going through an ancient ritual, the death and rebirth of the soul. You realize you don't need to return to who you were because that version of you was never fully real. And you don't need to become a new ideal for others to admire because the soul doesn't seek admiration. It seeks truth. You walk differently now, not trying to impress, but each step is more grounded. You speak differently, not trying to please, but each word rings more honest. And you show up differently, not hiding in the crowd, but also not needing noise to feel seen. You carry a quiet gravity, the weight of truth. You will lose more things along the way. People will walk away because they can't handle your change. You will doubt yourself. You will face long, lonely nights. But in that loneliness, you'll meet the one who never left you, the one who sat in the dark, the one who withstood the fire, the one who never ran. And when you meet them again, you'll know everything you ever searched for out there was never far from you. You no longer need the world to declare that you are enough. You remember you've always been enough, even before anyone applauded. You no longer need counterfeit love to feel alive. You remember you are love, even before anyone gave it to you. And then, when you look around, the world is no longer a prison. It becomes a vast space where you can walk without fear. Not because the world changed, but because you have. You no longer run from the dark because you've walked through it. You no longer fear collapse because you've survived it. And now, you know that no matter what happens, there is one thing no one can take from you, your true soul. You once thought you were depressed. You thought you were fading. But now, you understand you are awakening. You are remembering who you are. And this is not the end. It's only the beginning. So if one day you find yourself trembling in the dark again, remember you've been here before. You've heard the whisper, I've been waiting for you a long time, and you've risen from the ashes. The darkness is no longer your enemy. It is your teacher. It is the door. It is the place where you found your soul. So walk with that truth. No need to rush. No need to prove. Just exist, like a small but steady flame. Because you didn't fall. You rose, not perfectly, but honestly, not to impress, but to live. And as you walk this path, remember, everything that once broke you was the very thing that helped you find yourself. You are not depressed. You are remembering who you are. And from here, your real journey begins. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this story. If this message touched your heart, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss the next journey we take together. Your support means the world to me.